Hey y'all, today we have a Penn International 965. The customer is hoping to get more yardage or distance out of his casts. There's a few things that can affect the casting distance of these reels. One would be the worm, the bearings. There's a bushing inside there. I don't think you ever need to change that out. You can add a bearing for the bushing instead. But in the process, I'm going to show you kind of how to break some of this down. I'm actually not going to break down the entire thing, so I apologize for that in advance. But I think I'm probably going to end up breaking most of it down so you guys get an idea of how to break it down and put it back together. Anyway, let's get started on it. Open this thing up. There's supposed to be some O-rings or some gaskets on these things. It's not a deal breaker if they're not there. I think I see one. We'll leave it the way it is. They're supposed to be underneath there so you can kind of catch it so you don't lose these when you undo the screws, kind of like a capacitor or something. Anyhow, so let's open this up. Pop that off like that. This is the bushing I was talking about here. I did test this reel out and I got about a little over 15 yards of cast with it. So we're just trying to get to about 30-40 yards because he's going to use it on a kayak. So anyhow, so that's that. We're going to open this up so I can get to the bearings here, and then I'll show you how to get to the bearing on this side. And then we're probably going to do a little bit of cutting of the video, jumping around, all that stuff. So I'm just undoing this screw so I can get to the nut that holds the handle on. Then we can pop this nut off by unscrewing it to the left or counterclockwise. There's the handle, there's a plate under there, and we can just back this off by unscrewing it. Now I don't need to do all that stuff to get to this, but we're gonna break it down and do some work to it anyhow. So all right, so let's go ahead and do these two screws so we can drop this base out. I'm gonna kind of leave this broken down and kind of figure this out as I go as to what needs to be done to it. Alright, so those two screws are there. This just comes straight up, just like that. Nothing under there. Where I was going to clean this stuff up too. And now we can, oh, I don't want to do that yet, sorry. Let's move this out of the way. Pull that bearing out. Get out. Let me use my tweezers for this one. And the bearing feels alright. It just feels a little sluggish, so it just means that probably just a little bit too much grease, a little bit too much oil built up or inside there. So we're going to use some brake cleaner, something like this, to try to clean these out and get them a little more free. So we'll get to the other side and check that bearing as well. I'm guessing we'll probably have the same sort of issue. To undo this side plate, you're going to undo 3 screws in here. 4 screws, 3 screws. There's 1, 2, 3. I think a couple of these screws are longer than the other. Like 2 are long and 1 is short. I don't see these very much anymore. make sure all these screws are gone. Come here. All right. Excuse me. And just lay it on the table and push down. Comes up like that. You can take the screws out so you can see what they are. I kind of turn to the side. All right, so we have two long ones and then one short one here. You have to take note that there's a washer under here that sits on top of the transfer gear. Right there, like that. Seems like there's a lot of either grease or oil. So we're gonna kind of clean these things up, because obviously the more of this stuff you have, the more it kind of wants to create kind of like a vacuum or slows things down, kind of sucks things back when you have the moving parts. So yeah, so let's pull these screws out so you can see them. I don't want to disturb the clicker on this, but if it pops off, then we'll put it back on. So there's one. Where'd it go? Two long screws on this one over that. The transfer gear is short. Okay. Let me look at this paw. I'm sorry, this worm. It popped out anyhow. All right, let's just set that to the side. If you wonder where it came from, it kind of came from right here like this. You can see the two places for it. Where'd it go? It's across. It's more like right in there, because you got to put the clicker engage button through the frame of the reel. There's a little bit of dirt build up there. We'll probably end up taking that out as well. But right now what I want to do is find that second bearing. So to get that bearing out, you have to remove a little retaining ring that's in there, and it's really difficult to get inside there, so you want to use something like a blade to kind of get under it. And just, you want to keep your finger over this so it doesn't pop out or go flying on you. Yeah. Just take your time with it. I'm pushing the ring down as I push forward to try to get under it and behind it. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Now we can pull this out and see what that looks like. I suspect it's probably going to be the same amount, possibly the same sort of thing. Let's see if that plate is there. Okay. So let's check this one out. Yeah, same kind of feel to it. So I'm gonna clean those out and see if we can improve the spin rate on those. So I'll be right back. All right, so while we let the brake cleaner do its thing, let's go ahead and break this down so you kind of see how it goes. There's two washers on here, tension washers, kind of face like a flying saucer, or sit facing each other like a flying saucer. We're gonna clean all those things up, just showing you how the stack goes. The anti-reverse clutch. And I can't pull that up. Let's get these springs out of the way so we don't pop something out. Do we have it frozen in there? I don't like that. These have a tendency to get stuck. I just don't like it. Let me see if I can pull the pinion gear straight up, so that's out of the way. I don't want to touch that jag plate there, because it has springs on it. Alright, so we got that out of the way. So we don't have to worry too much about this. Alright, so I'm going to pause the camera just to see if we can get this freed up and pulled out. But I'm going to come back to you and show you how the stack looks. Alright, so I end up having to pop the entire thing out so I could get that freed up from underneath. So, like I said, you had the the air clutch. You got the sleeve. Now you have that washer, fiber, keyed. If we can get it out, smooth those things out of the way. Another fiber washer. I'm sorry, that was an aired, not a keyed. Keyed. Then you have a different size fiber washer on the bottom. Underneath you have a washer and your disengage plate when you coming out of free spool. All right, so I'm gonna clean the stuff up and then come back and just show you how to put it back together since I took it out anyhow. I cleaned up inside here already, and that's about all I'm gonna do for it. You want to be careful with these springs. They might pop up. If they do, just make sure they go back down when you get everything put back together. But they don't really go flying anywhere. They're not under a huge amount of load, but there is some load there still. All right, so I'll see you guys in a bit. All right, so I cleaned all these things up. I didn't clean the right side plate yet, which I'm gonna do when we get to it. I want to clean the side there a little bit. But I've cleaned all these things up, added grease to the drag washers, and I'm going to show you how to put it back together. The amount of grease I'm putting on here on these gears is very minimal. Just doesn't need a whole lot. That really should be good. I'm going to grease the inside of that ring right there. And also on the inside of this, the inner race for the clutch. That's a bit much. Let's get our pinion. And you know I love to grease pinions. I don't know what it is about it. I'm trying to be light on these things because he wants more distance out of it, and I'd rather just make the distance, or try to help the distance happen without modifying the reel at all, except for the bearings part. Where was I? Sorry. So I'm gonna go against what I normally do and not heavily grease the pinion gear. So for the anti-reverse, I cleaned it out a little bit with Q-tip, then I added one drop of oil on one of the rollers and on another, and that's it. There's a flat part on here. That flat part will be facing down, so it looks kind of like this. I'm putting it in right now just so I can distribute that oil that I put on there. And you don't want to heavily oil these things at all. Just one drop on a couple of rollers should suffice. I'm just working it in. Okay, so let's get our shaft. And I don't want things freezing up on me, so, or on him. So we're gonna grease lightly these areas. That should all be good. And now I'm gonna take this gear. We're gonna key that over, like, where'd it go? Like so. Make sure it's sitting flush. This is keyed, so you want to make sure it's sitting flush on top of that shaft, like that. And if it slips, it slips. We'll just have to do it again. That doesn't need any grease. Now we can put on the main gear. Once you get all these things in place, this kind of helps seat everything else. That looks good. Now at this point I'm gonna do a little bit of a balancing act and try to put that shaft in and secure it. Greasing this up a little bit. Drop that in the hole like so. And just stick this through. And I'm gonna hold on to that while I put this washer on and the E-clip. I think we're set. Yeah, it feels like we're set, which is good. Of course, I'm going to double check. All right, so next goes this washer. First keyed metal washer. The fiber washer. The aired metal washer. Fiber washer and the final keyed washer. Make sure it sits inside the inside the gear properly and nothing is slipping out of place. Now we can stick on the AR clutch. I'm gonna leave those these tension washers off. All right, so let's stick the pinion gear on. That should suffice. Where the pinion gear is going to sit is that notched end will be facing down through that hole, so it'll look like that, and it'll be facing away from the main gear, that curved end. Put over the post just like that, and then just kind of work it down like so. Now we can take stick our springs on and close this thing up. I'm going to clean inside here so we can add a little bit of grease to certain areas. All right, so a little bit of grease to the AR clutch. Make sure we get this back. I raised it up. I think we're good. A little bit of grease there. A little bit of grease inside here where that's going to sit. That should be good. And now we can just set this on and then close it up. This little notch stand will be going over that button right there. And once you get to here, kind of turn this AR, or turn the shaft to get that to seat properly. And that all looks good. We want to make sure it's good before we close it up. Let me double check something here. Okay, it feels good. All right, so let's close that up. Snug is fine. You don't need it to be super tight. And hopefully we didn't forget something. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna pull these bearings out and see how they feel. All right, so the bearings feel, that one feels all right. So I'm gonna dip that in alcohol. Let me blow this one out a little bit. This one feels a little bit rough. Maybe it's just my imagination. No, that feels okay. Dip that in there. Then we're gonna add just 1 or 2 drops of oil to this after we're done cleaning this up. Okay, so instead of breaking the worm down, I'm going to just clean it in place. Then I'll put all this stuff back together and then test the reel out again and see if we have an improvement on the distance. I suspect we will. So anyhow, so all I'm gonna do is just gonna turn that gear there to kind of rotate that and clean that out, and then blow it out with some compressed air for any loose impediments that may be inside. Because it doesn't seem too bad there. Now, if you want to take the worm out and the gear and pawl and everything else, you would first undo the pawl. Then you can undo the E-clip on this side. It just drops straight through. Undo that screw to remove that bar there. No, that feels fine. And then just kind of take note of where things came out, so you can put them back in the correct order. All right, so let me add a drop of oil, or a couple drops of oil on this, and then work that in. That should be sufficient. All right. All right, so I'll come back to you guys in a bit. Okay, so we're back and we've cleaned these bearings out. So now we got them spinning pretty nicely. We're gonna add oil to these. Of course, when you add the oil, it's not gonna spin as well. But you see, you gotta add the oil. So I'm adding 1 drop, 2. And if you're not that anal, or I don't say anal, but if you're not that don't care that much about the yardage, you can just do whatever you want. These are only theories. We're going to test these things out, or test the end result out afterwards. And if that doesn't work, then we're going to, we can add different bearings, and we can also add or remove some of those brakes. I'm trying to avoid that part. All right, so we're gonna get this put back together now. I'm gonna grease inside here where that bearing's gonna sit. And I'm trying not to touch that bronze plate on the bottom. Just the tiniest amount of oil on top of that. Let's put this bearing in. To get this retaining ring back in, you're gonna have to kind of angle this. If I can get it. Gotta kind of, but make sure it's seated all the way down. And you're gonna angle the straight end. And then just kind of rotate it around as you push down. You do want to make sure this is seated, so hold on to it until you verify that it's into that groove that's inside there. But just pushing down the edges. And it's usually the two ends that are still left up. That looks good. Yeah, so that looks like it's set in place. Let's do the right side as well. Same sort of thing. We're going to add some grease inside that hole where the bearing's going to sit. I'm just going to drop that in. Now we can take the clicker that came out and we can put that back in. It's going to slip into place. And just verify that it's over the holes, the receiving holes for the screws. I'm going to take those screws back in. Those are in, and we can certainly put the last one in since we did all of them already. Then we'll set it to the side for a sec. Maybe I should have left this one alone. Alright, I'm going to set that aside just like that. Alright. Let's get this part I'll clean this up. Let's go back to this plate. We're gonna add a tiny amount of grease here on that gear. And just a tiny amount here as well. And we got a slight amount here as well. Now you can do oil for these things. I gotta do something before I finish this up. We're gonna stick that. I'm not gonna do that side. Kind of talking to myself there. Sorry about that. You can stick the plate on there. That little washer that goes over that the gear. And now we can line this up. And essentially all you're doing is looking for the two. Essentially you want this gear opposite of the clicker. So you're looking for the two holes on that side. And then you're just gonna drop it in place, just like, I don't know if you can see that or not, shoot. It's kind of like that. And essentially what you can do is just kind of see it and then line those up. What I'm lining up is that gear right there with this gear here. That feels about right, but we're gonna verify in a sec. Yeah, it's going in. Alright, essentially what I was doing here, I don't want to over tighten these screws inside here, but I want to make them snug. Okay, so we're going to take these brakes and make sure they're in. Cleaned up around here already. I'm going to add the smallest amount of grease. To those points right there, and then just kind of work that in. Now if it ended up that we had to remove some of these brakes on here, we'd have to remove that C-clip that's at the base or at the top, slide that up, and then you can pop a couple out and then put it back in. I would not recommend taking out one, so if you want to take any out, just take one off each side, one there, or there and there, and leaving two. I don't like going that route, but anyhow. Alright, so just stick this in, if we can find our hole, and I'm going to rotate this so I can get the line out of there, kind of like that. And now we can put our excuse me, our right side on, just like that. Let's go with the tensioner first. Just a little bit of oil right there. We're going to screw that down. Now we can put our our washers on there. Remember, they're like a flying saucer. And let's go ahead and screw this in place so we don't forget that. So I kind of tighten these with my thumb, and then I kind of do like maybe like a half a crank or so to just secure it. Nothing super tight. Now you can put a star drag on. When you get to here, you can always use your handle to get that down a little bit lower, because you want that handle sitting flush. Put on our washer. Handle. And then we're going to line this up. One of those points needs to fit that. Needs to fit that hole right there. So we're going to tighten that to about right. Right about there looks about right. I'm going to add some grease around this. And on that hole right there. And just secure that. Alright, so I can tell if it feels better. I'm pretty confident it will, so get that out. Open this up. Yeah, that feels, oh yeah, that feels a lot better. Oh, he's gonna be happy. Alright, so I hope that helps some of you guys out there. Now I know it wasn't a complete breakdown, but that wasn't the goal of this video. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button and tell your friends about the channel if you appreciate the content that I put out. Alright, see y'all next time.